Right. I think it's the difference. I think all interesting movies are either puzzles or dreams.
When I first heard that quote, I immediately went through all my favorite movies and started categorizing them as either puzzles or dreams. Along the way, I noticed some movies resisting categorization. They were trying to be both puzzle and dream, and I believe that those movies are, at least conceptually, perfect. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. First, we need to figure out why puzzle movies and dream movies are satisfying at all. In the case of puzzle movies, we can travel to the 1800s for an answer. Back when Arthur Conan Doyle first started writing his Sherlock Holmes mysteries, cinema's earliest innovators recognized the detective's popularity, so they started putting him in a bunch of movies. Sherlock Holmes appeared in over 80 movies in the silent film era alone, with its first being in a minute-long short called Sherlock Holmes Baffled. Released the year 1900, audiences watched the detective try to figure out the mystery of the disappearing burglar, and in watching were trying to figure it out themselves. Like the wildly popular mystery novels that preceded them, movies gave audiences an analog through which they could play detective, and they continue to do so today. Through Leonardo DiCaprio's eyes, we solve the mysteries of Shutter Island. Alongside Tom Hanks, we learn how a castaway survives. With Guy Pearce's help, we uncover the secrets of Memento. These examples and many more show how puzzle movies often involve piecing together clues alongside a protagonist to figure out what is going on. And speaking of Memento, flashbacks are pretty characteristic of puzzle movies. The events depicted in The Social Network, for example, mostly take place in the past, but are being relayed as anecdotes in the present through court proceedings.
An ambush.
This storytelling device leaves you trying to figure out how the flashbacks lead to everyone suing each other. Films with multiple character arcs also have a puzzle quality to them. Pulp Fiction, for example, encourages you to figure out how or even if all the separate characters connect. Do the Right Thing is another heavily populated film that keeps the relationship between the characters a secret until Mookie's action shows that the connection was tolerance for racism. There are those who do the right thing in response to violent bigotry, and those who do not.
That's my fucking place!
And finally, plot twists. The psycho plot twist being the best, by the way, because it is basically a pun. The chair the corpse is sitting in twisting as the plot itself twists. It's pretty... Hitchcock was pretty good. Anyways, plot twists involve giving you pieces to put together one puzzle, but once the twist is revealed, you realize the pieces could have fit in an entirely different order. Half the fun of a twist ending, and most puzzle movies, is rewatching it to see if the pieces really do fit, not unlike a detective reviews a case to see if the evidence really adds up. Giving audiences a chance to investigate stories at a plot level has been the film industry's bread and butter since the beginning, but some puzzle movies also operate at a character level. According to esteemed film theorist Laura Mulvey, scopophilia, the satisfaction we get from looking at other people, is one of the many pleasures cinema provides. Sometimes that people watching is exploitative and perverse, but other times people watching becomes puzzle solving. Character studies, for example, might not present a mystery involving plot, but they do present the mystery that is a person. From a distance, we get to analyze Travis Bickle's psychosis. We learn the intricacies of Nola Darling's sexuality. We use all the clues the film presents us with in an attempt to make sense of its central characters. But whether we're solving a plot or a person, puzzle movies let us practice in more exciting artificial realities what we do every day in our regular realities, assess situations, navigate new environments, and or just figure out who the people around us really are. But if a movie's not a puzzle giving you something to solve, then it might be doing the opposite. In addition to her point about scopophilia, Mulvey writes, while there are circumstances in which looking itself is a source of pleasure, there is also pleasure in being looked at. I'd argue movies that look at you are dream movies, and there are a few better examples of a dream movie than the one that inspired David Rees's categorization.
Spirited Away is a dream.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
The surreal imagery and sheer amount of allegory in the film make viewing Spirited Away the near equivalent of viewing pieces of one's own unconscious. Nobody's worked at a bathhouse that serves dirty spirits, but many have worked a fairly funky first job. Like mine was night shifts at a movie theater. I'd spend weekends just cleaning out these cartloads of trash, and it was It was disgusting because the soda and the popcorn were mixed together and to form this liquid that we called theater juice. It was not the best. And when I watched Chihiro navigate her first job, I feel like I'm watching a dream version of myself navigate my first job. Seeing her parents get fed off food no one said they could eat is like watching a dream version of the blind greed that happens in reality. The simultaneous ambiguity and specificity of images in Spirited Away contribute to its dreamlike quality. Such imagery is turned apocalyptic in Mad Max Fury Road, which contributes to its nightmarish feel. And it is turned psychedelic in Uncut Gems to make entering the opal feel like a drug experience. But imagery alone does not a dream film make. Another aspect of dream films is a hyperbolization of time.
Dream, your mind functions more quickly, therefore time seems to feel more slow.
If a movie strives to be a dream, then it should behave like a dream. One way to do that is playing with imagery, as we have seen, but the other way is playing with time. Literary critic Mikhail Bakhtin noticed that some stories mimic the behavior of dreams by embracing the peculiar distortion of temporal perspectives characteristic of dreams. Alice in Wonderland, for example, compresses her journey into the length of a nap, and judging by the growth in vegetation, the days Chihiro spent in the spirit world might have dragged on much longer than she thought. Temporal dissonance and surreal imagery can help a movie feel like a dream, but again, playing with imagery and time alone do not necessarily make for a dream movie. The Matrix, for example, has some fever dream imagery, and it plays with time in a scene where years of martial arts training is compressed into a matter of hours.
I know Kung Fu.
But it is not a dream movie. It is a puzzle movie with dreamlike elements. The distinction between movies like The Matrix and Spirited Away is small, but crucial. Both drop viewers into a world without a sense for its rules. Both give audiences a proxy through which they can try to solve the mysteries of this world. But what The Matrix has that Spirited Away doesn't have is a white room exposition dump. The rules of The Matrix are explained almost fully by Orpheus in a single scene. A similar thing happens in Inception, which I argue is also, ironically, not a dream movie. It is a puzzle movie that uses dreams to complicate its mysteries, but its various exposition dumps show it still wants those mysteries to be solved. Spirited Away, on the other hand, has less interest in being solved and more interest in being experienced. It shows you all these abstract images that feel familiar but evade concrete meaning. And I think that is the distinction. In place of white room exposition dumps, Spirited Away gives you moments like these, gives you room for meditation. You reflect on the movie's dreamlike imagery for the same reason you reflect on your own dreams in the morning, to solve yourself. While puzzle movies have clues pertaining to other stories and other people, dream movies carry clues for solving you and your story. The more abstract the film, the more temporally dissonant it is, the more a person might feel like it is a reflection of their unconscious. It's just a matter of not explaining that unconscious to somebody, because oftentimes dreams don't explain themselves to you. They just happen. The problem with categorizing dreams, though, is that not everyone's unconscious is the same. For example, Moonlight projected a group of people's untold realities and unspoken fantasies onto the big screen. And for those people, the film behaved as a dream. For others, the film was a puzzle, a character piece that helped deepen their understanding and gain empathy for Chiron and all the other people in situations like his. This just goes to show that whether a movie is a puzzle or a dream can vary depending on the viewer. But I've found that some movies, no matter who the viewer, can function both as puzzle and dream. By being both a window for you to look through and solve other people, and also a mirror looking at you trying to solve you, some movies maximize their cinematic potential. Some movies become nearly perfect. Some movies become The Silence of the Lambs.
Good morning.
Our proxy for the mysteries and Silence of the Lambs is Clarice Starling, a student at the FBI Academy. She is essentially a Sherlock Holmes in training, and she just got her first assignment: get information on the serial killer, Buffalo Bill. This surface plot alone would satisfy her desire to play detective, but the crime stuff makes it no different from an NCIS episode. The puzzle has to be more complex, which is where Hannibal comes in. Difficult to read and even harder to get talking, he presents us with an entirely different mystery. What does he need to hear that will get us information on Buffalo Bill? Using a subjective camera, director Jonathan Demme lets us see through Starling's eyes as she gathers clues. We notice the paintings, so we offer a view in exchange for information. If you've seen the movie, you know that winds up not working because Hannibal doesn't want a view. He wants to figure out what he's been looking at, and what he's been looking at is us.
Quid pro quo. I tell you things, you tell me things. Not about this case, though. About yourself.
Clarice, technically, but again, she's our proxy, so whenever Hannibal's looking at her, he's also looking at us. And also, the film's just full of shots like these where Hannibal isn't looking at anything in particular, he's just looking at the audience. Having a PhD in psychiatry, Hannibal is interested in figuring out what makes us tick. His presence turns Silence of the Lambs into the rare movie in which an audience is simultaneously playing detective and being detected. To solve the James Gunn mystery, we must allow Hannibal to solve Clarice. We must allow the movie to solve us, and it does.
After your father's murder, you were orphaned. You were 10 years old. You went to live with cousins on a sheep and horse ranch in Montana. And?
After all his poking and prodding, Hannibal gets us to reveal a piece of our unconscious directly to ourselves.
I heard a strange noise.
This monologue is where the Silence of the Lambs enters dream territory. While not as visually abstract as Spirited Away, there is a dreamlike quality to Starling's story. A surreal atmosphere is created by the camera rendering prison bars into a couple blurred lines we can easily travel through. It almost feels as if we're breaking the laws of nature in order to hear Clarice speak.
What did you see, Clarice? What did you see?
Lambs. They were screaming.
Because there are no flashbacks to ground the content of her story with actual visuals, the images are up to us, which means those screaming lambs can look as nightmarish as the pigs in Spirited Away. Also, much like most of the images in Spirited Away function as allegory, the lambs in Starling's story represent more than just lambs. They are the screaming victims Starling wants to save, and because we have been following Starling for most of the film, because we have been seeing through her eyes, been in her shoes, we feel as if her story is also our own.
I thought if I could save just one, but he was so heavy. It was so heavy.
The film has essentially performed Inception on us, on the audience. It has turned Starling's trauma into our own, so by having Hannibal solve the mystery that is her passion for detective work, it also solves us. Why do we like playing detective? Why do we like puzzle movies? It's because of the lambs. We often solve puzzles alongside these protagonists to satisfy a need that I think is driven by compassion, that the Silence of the Lambs thinks is driven by compassion. We try to solve these mysteries in order to feel like we are saving the day. The presence of the James Gunn mystery, paired with Hannibal turning us, the audience, into an equally interesting mystery, allows Silence of the Lambs to function both as an entertaining puzzle film and an introspective dream movie. It is conceptually perfect. I say conceptually because no movie is actually perfect. No movie has universal acclaim, but a movie can do everything in its power to get close to universal acclaim. A movie can be a crowd-pleasing puzzle that satisfies our need to know our surroundings and know the people in those surroundings. And it can also be, at the same time, a profound uncovering of our unconscious, an exploration of what's in our head that would satisfy our need to know ourselves. This is like insane ambition if you're trying to do this, but I think if you're trying to make the perfect movie, it is worth trying to collapse the puzzle dream binary in the same way that Jonathan Demme did with The Silence of the Lambs.